But yeah, there's a ton going on in the Sooner world too, just across all sports. Football, of course, being front of mind for OU fans consistently all year round. There's no off season there, and I know there was some big things. Chief of which last week was some of the interviews that came across the board with all the different assistant coaches. We got most of them in that session last week. Tyler, I know you watched through, I think, all of them. I saw a couple of them, but what stood out to you from that interview?
Yeah, it's kind of sad. Unfortunately, we do record on Tuesday nights, and a lot of the media availabilities do happen a little bit later in the week. But that does give us a lot of good things to talk about once we come around for the next episode. But no, you're right. Adam, the media had a chance last Thursday to meet with all the position coaches on Brent Venable's staff, and this was really, I think, kind of our first chance to hear from newcomers like Todd Bates, McGill Chavis, Brandon Hall, Jay Valai, as well as kind of get an updated look at what Bill Beanbo's thinking about, Joe John Finley, DeMarco. When you kind of peel back the layer on Bill Beanbo, especially, and what Cale Gundy, them talking about how, they've never been more excited to be a part of OU football. And those are two guys, especially Cale, that have been around for, 5, 10, or in Cale's case, 20 plus years here at Oklahoma. But I am curious to kind of get your guys' thoughts on some of the takeaways from it. I know that there were a few things that kind of stuck out to me about that group, what they said, especially from Bates and Chavis. And, starting with a guy in Todd Bates, it's pretty obvious after hearing this guy's story, how he speaks, why Dabo Swinney did everything humanly possible to hold on to Todd Bates at Clemson. We said at the minute the announcement became public that this was BV's biggest hire, even more impactful, I think, than bringing Jeff Lebby on board. He played in the SEC West in Alabama. He's been part of multiple national championships at Clemson. If you followed him on Twitter, I think you could probably call him a poet with some of the things that he's put out with regards to coaching and life. But I think the biggest thing of all, he's an elite recruiter that's won those recruiting battles over the likes of Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. So it's really nice having a guy like him in Norman.
Yeah, the poetry and stuff, I mean, that kind of falls on deaf ears.
That
for
seems
me.
like something you'd really connect to, Adam. That's shocking.
Yeah. No, I am not along those lines of a thinker. So, I mean, I definitely find it a really important hire, and you're seeing the results of that. There's guys that normally wouldn't even consider OU that are setting official visits or maybe have been on campus recently that we normally wouldn't be in the running for, not only on the interior of the defensive line, but on the outside on the defensive ends as well. And I think Miguel Chavis was the one that, was the most interesting to me, probably the most mysterious hire as of right now, simply because he was a guy that came in that had never coached a position group in college before, but was getting rave reviews just around his way he connected with the players, the way he's recruiting. And I think you saw that in that interview they did. I think what particularly stood out to me was he was so intentional about knowing the different names of all the different reporters. It was, thank you, so-and-so for your question, answers the question, and then wraps it up saying their name again, being so intentional about that, treating them, as humans and just having a respectful relationship with them. Not that previous administrations didn't necessarily, but he was going out of his way to treat everyone with so much respect when honestly in 2022, they don't have as much to gain from the media as they did maybe 20, 30 years ago.
There were some good moments, but guys, I don't give a rat's ass about what people and coaches are saying in March in an off season. Just to be totally honest, what this team and what these coaches will be decided and how their fate goes is based on how many wins they get. And all of the talk and all of this about how we're here for education first, beyond life first. It's more than just football. That's all great. I hope you can build a foundation of a program around that. Everything that Venables is saying is spot on to probably what we want to hear. But we were saying the same stuff, when Lincoln Riley got hired, even heading into last year. I know we joked and prodded about the we're so close stuff, but Lincoln would say good things at a press conference. He maybe wasn't as engaged and maybe didn't get 10-minute answers off a simple, one-line question like Venables is seemingly going to do from here on out. But guys, I don't care about any of this. It's nice coach speak. All coaches are going to have their little phrases and taglines that'll make the fan base happy. But until we hit August and September, it is what it is, and it's just words.
I understand that a lot of it is coach speak, but I still think that when you kind of take a step back and look at it, it's still it doesn't feel like something that you hear 99% of coaching staffs talk about. I mean, when you look at what Brent Venables and, even, looking at a guy like Miguel Chavis, just an incredible communicator, is very gifted when it comes to connecting with people that he's in front of in a room. He's kind of accredited a lot of that to his time spent as both a youth minister and a college minister prior to joining the staff, the support staff at Clemson. But just watching that 16 minutes, and Adam, you hit the nail on the head talking about Miguel Chavis. Hearing from some of the people around the program and a few high school coaches that have had conversations with Miguel Chavis, authenticity and genuineness are the first two words that kind of come out of people's mouths when you're talking to Miguel Chavis, and you see both recruits and current players bragging about this guy. And Corbin, I agree with you. It is March. What do you expect the coaches to say? But I think that it is kind of a breath of fresh air compared to the last guy that's been the head ball coach at Oklahoma, where it was I'm going to be with the media the exact amount of time, the most amount of time that I can be without pissing anybody off. Okay, my 29 minutes is up. Okay, Mike, pull me out of here. I'm done. So being able to see these guys kind of talk about how we care about the kids. We care about the relationship. We're not going to be transactional. Yes, we're here football coaches. Yes, we're here to coach them on the field, but we care more about what their life is going to look like after their 3, 4, 5 years are done here at Oklahoma. So I think it just kind of is a breath of fresh air compared to the previous administration that was here at Oklahoma. And I don't know. I don't know whether it's me drinking the Kool-Aid, but I just think something feels different about Brent Venables and the staff that he's got here.
So I can only sustain so long on a breath of fresh air. I'm ready to get some meat and, something more substantial that can give me that energy going forward. And I think Corbin's probably a step ahead of me in that journey. I'm right behind you there, Corbin. Like, this is going to get a little bit old, when we keep hearing the same motivational, authentic answers. Like, I can only live on that for so long before I want to see actual football on the field. I want to see actual change. I want to see the defensive backs not being so far off the ball and everyone's subbing off. And I just want to see change actually on the field. And I know we're months and months away from that. So I don't know. I wonder if more people will get on board like Corbin and I are, where maybe we're starting to get a little tired of this, not in a bad way, but like, hey, let's go out and actually do something before we start taking, too much meaning out of all this.
I think one of the things I'm really interested to see, and again, it's kind of minor, but I'm curious to see what Venables and this coaching staff says during the offseason, once we go through spring practice, once we get into fall camp, and you start to see some of these reports that come out of practice about guys that are sticking out, guys that are fighting for playing time. If the words and the reports that we get from the staff actually matches up once the lights are on and once games are actually being played. We hear so many stories about, oh, this guy's lighting it up in practice. He's playing so well. Well, he never touches the field on Saturdays. So I'm kind of interested to see, is there going to be some truth on game days compared to what's being said during the offseason and once fall camp kind of gets here. So
yeah, I mean, all the raw guys right now, not going to mean anything if you drop 2 of the first 5 or 6 games to kick off the season next year. So beyond football, beyond life, all sounds great. And I think every coach probably agree to that when it comes to hopping up in front of a mic stand. Yeah. But guys, results on the field are all we're really after. Unfortunately, that's kind of the world we live in. And the off the field stuff is great, but that doesn't keep your job.
The biggest wins that you can really get in the offseason are getting some commitments from recruits. And we just hosted a pretty big junior day here in Norman, a number of different big time recruits visiting campus probably for the first time, some return visits, most of them meeting the coaching staff for the first time. Pretty quiet though. No commitments, which is perfectly fine. But I don't know. I kind of walked away from this weekend thinking like, meh, like there's just no big takeaway there. Every recruit kind of said the same old, it's a great family atmosphere. I enjoyed it. It was so much better than I expected. But am I missing something here, Tyler, or is there something that you're taking away from this that maybe I'm missing?
I kind of am taking a little bit away from it. You mentioned, this being such a big recruiting weekend, 30 to 40 guys on campus. I think that there's 2 major things that you can kind of take away from it. One is, OU being able to recruit and bring kids in nationally. I mean, you saw a lot of guys from the state of Florida, the Southeast, Alabama, Georgia, a lot of guys that, during Lincoln Riley's time as the football coach, that was a lot of part of the country that he conceded. He knew that he wasn't going to be able to compete in those areas with the likes of some of those other SEC teams. So we're going to focus primarily, maybe on that DMV area or out on the West Coast. So it was fun being able to see kids from the Southeast being able to come to Norman. And like you said, guys at Oklahoma wouldn't be able to, chances are they weren't going to be able to land, but they weren't even going to get on campus a year ago. So being able to see kind of an uptick in the caliber of athlete, more and more 4-stars, more 5-stars are going to be making their way to Oklahoma. And I thought that it's really interesting that Venables is kind of implementing the same, almost kind of a code when it comes to committing to a place like Oklahoma. You use it at Clemson, just like he's doing at Oklahoma, kind of where, the minute that you decide that you want to commit to Oklahoma, you're not taking any other visits, or you're not taking other visits without letting this coaching staff know. So I think that that's very, very interesting. And I kind of almost like that Venables is telling these guys, if you commit, if you make this decision, you're locked in with us and your recruiting process is over. There's no more going down to Texas A&M for a weekend. There's no more going down to Austin, just to check it out. I've got extra official visits I can take. If you're going to come to Oklahoma, if you want to jump on board with us, it's over. Shut it down. And OU might not be able to capitalize on one or two kids because of that. They might be turned off to that. But at the end of the day, I think, speaking for all three of us, we want guys that are locked in. They know that Oklahoma is a place for them and they want to play here.
Be curious to see how that plays out. I know it worked at a place like Clemson, but Clemson's had a lot more. Well, they've had the next step of success as a program that we've been after. We don't have that right now. We may have some of those guys who are able to do that, but what has been done in Oklahoma besides getting to a playoff has fallen short in comparison to what you were able to do at Clemson. Clemson, you walk in, you saw the recent national championship rings. You kind of have that foot to stand on to make that call. I don't know that you have that here. And so it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out. And you're right. Does that scare a few guys away that maybe we'd still be involved with moving forward? Possibly. Does it prolong some conversations to keep us from that next tier of guys? Some of the things that we had concerns of when Stoops was back here, that we were on guys too long, that we're never going to commit here, and we lost out on plan B guys, so we were stuck with plan C guys. Does that happen now? Because, kids aren't fully committed to being here, yet we keep recruiting them. To me, you got to kind of ebb with the flow a little bit more than that. That's one thing I think Lincoln Riley did do a good thing, handling that situation of, even though guys maybe were committed and were going on different visits, maybe were committed, decommitted, eventually came back to being committed. That staff was really good at kind of navigating those conversations and those situations. So I'm more on the Lincoln Riley side of doing things when it comes to that front with today's culture, today's, 16, 17, 18-year-olds, but we'll see how it goes.
I can see the value in the way that Brent Venables is kind of flipping the whole recruiting pitch on them. And we were all in sales. That's what we did when we were at the University of Oklahoma. So we kind of know what that's like, where basically he's saying, hey, you should be recruiting Oklahoma rather than me recruiting you. Like, my offer is more valuable, and kind of phrasing it that way, as far as saying, hey, like, once you commit, like, you're in. So I could see some value there. I just hope that it's not as cemented and set in stone as his way of doing things. I want him to be able to say, if that doesn't work out, pivot, adjust, make changes. Because at Clemson, you did have a lot of advantages. You were more successful on the field more recently. Proximity-wise, you had a lot of those guys very close to you. They didn't have to fly in from across the country to get to your campus. They could come back and make a return visit. So I do want to see how this plays out, but I also want to be quick to pivot if that, comes into play there, as far as missing out on a lot of talent.